Alright, so Mr. Beast, probably one of, if not the single largest YouTubers on the face of the planet, recently made a video where he essentially paid for cataract surgery for 1,000 people in a video that got actually a lot of backlash and some controversy surrounding it. So I just wanted to get into this real quick with you guys and give you my take on this entire thing. So here to start us off, from Vice, they say Mr. Beast cured 1,000 people's blindness because society is broken, that a wealthy YouTuber had to step in to provide access to a quick surgery is dystopian, but that may have been the point. And I think that this is basically going to be my rough takeaway from this entire series of events, because on the one hand, you see that, okay, he paid for this surgery that is obviously going to make a massive impact in these individuals' lives. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm happy for every single one of those 1,000 people, but at the same time, it's sort of like a, as they point out, dystopian reflection of our modern society, specifically here in the United States with our for-profit healthcare system that we have in place, that it would be up to a wealthy YouTuber to be able to, allow these people to live just normal lives and not have essentially this desperately needed surgery be hidden behind, as Hassan Piker has pointed out, this paywall where they don't have access to it simply because they cannot afford it. So I'll link this down below if you want to go watch the actual video. I watched through the entirety of it. I mean, there's nothing necessarily that I would have an issue with within this video outside of the lack of a systemic critique of the US healthcare system and why these people were not able to get access to this surgery without the help of Mr. Beast. But generally, I don't think that people should be picking a fight or getting angry over Mr. Beast for doing this outside of, maybe he's, profiting off of this video, this type of a, style of content that he does on a regular basis, and to some extent sort of exploiting the fact that people are too poor to afford many healthcare services in this country in order to get that surgery for themselves. So I mean, there's somewhat of a critique here against Mr. Beast, but at the end of the day, if you're going after him instead of going after the health insurance companies, some of these hospitals and stuff that are owned by gigantic for-profit corporations who are fucking over the American people on a regular basis, then I think that you're kind of missing the point, to say the least. But if you actually look at the video that he uploaded here, 1,000 blind people see for the first time, and it has 63 million views in 2 days. Okay, so again, Mr. Beast is getting the type of traction on YouTube that you do not see anywhere. Okay, this is like completely unheard of, absurd amounts of views, and I'm sure he's bringing in untold amounts of money from this type of a video. How much did he spend on the actual surgeries? I don't know, but this is an absolutely insane amount of views to get in just a couple of days, and this is pretty standard for Mr. Beast. If you look at his channel here, some of the content that he typically uploads, I mean, some of it is kind of harmless, kind of like clickbaity stuff where it's like, okay, to take their hand off of a jet gets to keep it and shit like that. But then you also get into some kind of questionable stuff here, like this one with the $10,000 every day that you survive prison, and it's kind of giving the impression that they're actually suffering under the brutal conditions that American prisoners are actually subjected to. Meanwhile, it's literally like a gigantic room where you have a bunch of amenities and all of that. So I could see how some people have massive issues with some of his videos. I mean, this one as well, the reenactment of Squid Games, which is basically like one of the most dystopian things I could possibly imagine. It's like he didn't even watch Squid Games and actually get the message from that, the capitalist critique from this type of a video, but he reenacted that. And I mean, again, the numbers here are absolutely fucking insane. 355 million views on just this one Squid Game reenactment video. Okay, so there's Mr. Beast for you, basically in a rough outline. Okay, this is the type of content that he does. Again, I don't think it's necessarily a problem that he is going, and making content in order to raise revenue, in order to pay for things that might actually materially improve some people's lives. I don't have a problem with that inherently. The problem here is when people actually get into trying to critique the American healthcare system or any other systemic issues that we are facing right now as a country. So let's go ahead and get into that aspect of it. So they start off here saying that in a video uploaded on Sunday, YouTuber Mr. Beast announced that he was going to help around 1,000 blind people see for the first time by sponsoring their cataract surgeries. He said, "It's gonna be crazy," Mr. Beast says in front of an audience of applauding patients. And throughout the video, Mr. Beast, real name Jimmy Donaldson, talks to people about their blurred eyesight before their surgery and after they emerge from the 10-minute surgery. I mean, a 10-minute surgery, think about this. These people otherwise probably would not have been able to pay for this surgery. 10 minutes, okay? And this is being being, again, as Hassan Piker pointed out down below in this article, it is being paywalled, okay? It is being restricted because these people couldn't otherwise afford this simple 10-minute surgery. I mean, it's completely grotesque that we're even in a situation where somebody like Mr. Beast would have to step in to basically prop up the American healthcare industry. And we've talked about on this channel before the amount to which, things like GoFundMe also play a role in funding American healthcare services, because there is just absolutely no legitimate way that these healthcare insurance companies are going to be able to actually provide adequate healthcare services for the American people broadly. But they say that they were joyful at their newfound eyesight, and he then dishes out lucrative prizes, including a $50,000 in cash, or gifting a brand new Tesla to one of the people who was in this video. They say that the heartwarming video drew immediate attention, not least because the premise of a life-improving surgery being directly gifted by a wealthy YouTuber in an inspirational video seems slightly dystopian. Yeah, it is definitely dystopian. Again, it doesn't mean that Mr. Beast is doing something like terrible or wrong or immoral here. It's just like, he shouldn't have to be the guy who does this, right? This should be basically regulated by the government. And so we have a universal healthcare system like Medicare for all, a health insurance system, in order to guarantee free at the point of service healthcare for every single American citizen, as pretty much every other OECD nation across the world does, at least to some extent. But they say that Mr. Beast has said that he spends $8 million a month on his videos, and by his estimate, his business's valuation is $1.5 billion. Okay, I cannot, again, emphasize enough how much fucking money this guy is bringing in on YouTube. But they say, quote, "I watched this video and I'm filled with rage," again, this is from Hassan Piker, "that we shut off access to a 10-minute procedure because we paywalled it and decided that only some people can get it if they have enough money at their disposal." And he continues saying that it's so insanely frustrating that it's up to one YouTube guy to decide to make content out of it that people who are too poor can't fucking see. And I think Hassan, again, is 100% right. That's pretty much my exact same critique of this type of a video, right? You could make an argument, yeah, I mean, look at the thumbnail here. He's kind of propping it up. He's exploiting it to some extent. He's trying to get engagement on this video, which he obviously succeeded at. But again, if you're not including some sort of a systemic critique there of the American healthcare system, or why somebody like you would be able to, be the guy who does this in the first place, then I think that your content is at least lacking, to say the least. But we're going to get to a tweet here from Mr. Beast in a second, where it seems like he kind of was starting to get the point about why people were critiquing this video. But they finish off here, we're going to finish off here, saying that cataracts occurs when proteins in the lens of the eye break down, causing vision to become cloudy. They are very common with aging, and about half of everyone over the age of 80 has either had cataracts addressed with surgery or currently live with them. But they also afflict younger people, and some people are born with them, including a few people in his videos. And the condition is addressed relatively easily by surgery that extracts the old lens and replaces it with an artificial lens. And they say estimates put the cost of cataract surgery sans insurance at somewhere near $7,000 per eye. $7,000 per eye to just be able to see in the wealthiest country that has ever existed on the face of the planet. I mean, again, it's a completely grotesque system that we have in place right now, but they say only 80% of that is covered by Medicare, not including deductibles, according to Forbes Health. So if you are somebody who needs cataract surgery to just operate in your basic, daily functioning of your life, you are potentially going to have to pay $1,000, $2,000, depending on your health insurance plan, out of pocket in order to pay to get your fucking eyes fixed. Okay, I just want to pause on that for a second. Okay, we are living in the wealthiest country in the history of humanity, and we have not somehow figured out a way to confront the power of these gigantic big pharma and health insurance companies and hospitals in order to basically provide the ability to see for our citizens. I mean, it is fucking deranged what we are allowing, what is essentially just a healthcare mafia, to get away with in screwing the American people out of something that should be considered a human right? I mean, if you can, have a surgery that is so easy to fix somebody's ability to see and just, be able to go about their daily life, I mean, that is something that would be worth covering, you would think, as a society, not even just from the perspective of like basic humanity, but also even from the perspective of capitalism. As Mr. Beast pointed out in one of his responses to this, it doesn't seem like you're going to get a good return on your investment if, as a lot of people in his video were displaying, they've been prevented from even going to get a job or continuing in the work that they had been doing because they aren't able to afford the out-of-pocket costs for this kind of a surgery. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense no matter what frame you want to look at it from. But They finish off here saying that the price is higher if you need a more expensive lens to deal with farsightedness, nearsightedness, or astigmatism ailments not typically covered by insurance. So again, this is just the product of for-profit healthcare, okay? That is all that this is here in the United States. Of course, we know the absurdities of our healthcare system that we're going to get to here in a second, but first, I just want to get into a couple different tweets that Mr. Beast pointed out in response to a lot of the backlash that he was getting for putting out this video, because I think he was just like so close in this tweet to understanding why some people were angry or up in arms about the US healthcare system after his video came out. So he points out here, I don't understand why curable blindness is even a thing. Why don't governments step in and help? Perfect question. That is an amazing question. They absolutely should. That is what something like a Medicare for all plan would cover. It would be a national health insurance plan. Everybody pays into the same pool. When you need healthcare, whether it's for cataracts, whether it's for some, catastrophic, emergency situation that you're in, or whether it's just for basic healthcare services, it would be covered at the point of service. Okay, you are not going to face the risk of bankruptcy. You're not going to have all of these other, implications that are brought about by for-profit healthcare. So yes, he's right. That's a good question. Governments should step in and help, and obviously a vast majority of OECD nations around the world in Western Europe and even members of what would typically be designated as like the global south or poorer countries around the world, they do have universal healthcare systems. I mean, Cuba is a perfect example of that, a country that is constantly demonized by the United States empire, a country that we have had an embargo on for over 6 decades at this point. And even with all of these barriers that have been put into place or put in the way of Cuba, they have a higher life expectancy than the wealthiest and most powerful country on the face of the planet in the United States. Okay, so maybe we should be looking to other countries for how their healthcare systems operate and how they are able to deliver superior care to their citizens. So it's a great question that he's asking here. And it's like, again, he's so fucking close to understanding it. But he says, even if you're thinking purely from a financial standpoint, it's hard to see how they don't get a return on investment on taxes from people being able to work again. Okay, so this is Mr. Beast we're talking about, right? I don't think he's like, going to be leading the vanguard of a socialist revolution in this country or anything like that. But this is a pretty good take considering what type of content that he puts out, considering what type of person, what roughly we could guess that his economic ideological framework would be. This is a decent question here. And again, even from the capitalist perspective in this analysis, it doesn't even really seem to make much sense, because they're talking about what, maximum $7,000 surgery, you're gonna have to pay a couple $1,000s out of pocket. You're telling me that it wouldn't be worth it for the United States government to cover the cost of that surgery so that a lot of those people could actually go back and do the jobs they were trying to do and try to have some sort of normalcy in their lives? I mean, of course it would be worth it. It would be worth it even if none of those people were going to go back and become good cogs in the machine of capitalism. It would be worth it across the board. So when I saw this tweet, I was like, you could see I responded to it here, just kind of giving my rough explanation of what should happen, right? But you look at this kind of a tweet and you're like, oh my God, this Mr. Beast guy, right? One of the largest YouTubers on the face of the planet, huge sway over younger audiences. You would think like, oh my God, he's on the verge of getting it. And maybe he'll start to incorporate a lot of these systemic critiques into his commentary. Is that the case? Yet to be seen to a large extent, but with follow-up posts like this, it's kind of giving me the indication that there might be a little bit of doubt on that hopeful front. So here from Mr. Beast again, just like I guess a day later from that original post, he says, Twitter, rich people should help others with their money. And he says, me, okay, I'll use my money to help people, and I promise to give away all my money before I die, every single penny. And then Twitter turning around and saying Mr. Beast is bad. Okay, so again, to anybody who's saying like, oh, Mr. Beast is evil for providing this surgery and making content out of it, again, I get the critique there where you're sort of exploiting people who are too poor to be able to afford this basic healthcare service and you're making content out of it and all of that. I get that to some extent, but at the same time, I'm not going to harp on that because I don't think that's the main problem here, right? Again, the problem is that somebody like Mr. Beast would be in the position to be able to provide this necessary service to people when that should just be basically covered across the board for every single American citizen, right? Okay, so that's the actual real critique here, so I'm not going to get mad at him about that. But what is this really saying? He says, again, rich people should help others with their money. Okay, well, that's not what people are saying. People aren't saying like, we need more billionaire philanthropy, we need more billionaire capitalist charity or something like that. Billionaire philanthropy is essentially just propaganda to further entrench their own position within this economic hierarchy and to continue allowing the type of corruption that goes on with our healthcare system, or to continue allowing a tiny minority of the American populace, the billionaire class, to have more wealth wealth than the bottom half of the country combined, right? I mean, that's the real critique here, is about like, okay, their taxes aren't high enough, right? We're not redistributing wealth in the right ways. We don't have enough labor protection so that workers are entitled to the full value of the production of their labor, right? Things like that, right? Those are the actual systemic critiques here. It's not about like rich people individually should decide to help more other individuals with their money. That's completely glossing over the actual systemic critique here. But he says that he'll use his money to help people. Okay, that that can be fine in an individual circumstance, but giving your money away before you die, I mean, again, this is something that like we've heard from like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. I mean, this is utterly meaningless at the end of the day, right? Giving your money away before you die. What are you, like my age? I mean, you're like what, in your early 20s or something like that? This is not a solution to the systemic problems that we are facing here in the United States. So, I mean, on that front, I mean, again, you kind of have a little bit of hopium here that he was sort of starting to get the systemic critiques, but then here it's like, is he really getting it? I don't know. And also you have this added aspect where a large portion of his content is reliant on some of these structural systemic problems within this country, in order for him to like, exploit the fact that like, okay, I'm going to go give $50,000 in cash to some random homeless person or buy them a house or something like that. And it's like, he kind of relies on the fact that we have a lot of these societal problems in order to make a lot of his content. So with that being said, I mean, again, I think my general takeaway from Mr. Beast generally is that I don't think he's like a bad guy or anything like that. I just think he's sort of missing a little bit of, what he could be adding to his commentary, to his content on his channel in order to have, again, large sway over younger people in this country and starting to address some of the issues that lead to somebody like Mr. Beast being in a position to solve a problem that could have easily otherwise been solved by the government or by just having basic social services in this country for millions and millions of people across the country. But just to emphasize here how completely broken and absurd and corrupt the U.S. healthcare system is, of course, we know most of these statistics here from Harvard. They say new study finds that 45,000 deaths annually are linked to a lack of healthcare coverage. We are losing 45,000 Americans per year just because they do not have adequate healthcare in this country. I mean, again, wealthiest country in the history of the world. You couldn't possibly make a good argument that we don't have the funding mechanisms, we don't have the money to be able to pay for basic healthcare services. Again, every other major OECD nation across the world manages to pull this off. We just have completely corrupted our political system to the point where health insurance companies, big pharma, have more sway over our healthcare legislation than average Americans do. But, you have other statistics like this to add to that. 100 million people in the United States are saddled with medical debt. I mean, this phrase, medical debt, is not something that should even exist in a functioning society. I mean, what are you really saying? You're saying that people should be financially punished, potentially have their lives uprooted and ruined because what? They got sick, one of their family members got in some catastrophic accident or illness or something like that. I mean, it's a grotesque even concept to think about for a second, but this is the United States of America for you. And just in a broad scopes comparison here to other countries as well, because again, this isn't something where we're branching out into a new frontier. We basically are just trying to catch up to the rest of the developed world in terms of our healthcare system here. But from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, they say, how does U.S. healthcare system compare to other countries? Okay, so they say the United States spends more on healthcare per person than any other wealthy country around the world, and you can see it in this graph here. I mean, in a per capita sense, we are paying $12,318 per person in the United States on an annual basis. The next in line, okay, the number 2 country is Germany, and they're sitting at $7,383. So what, like 5,000 or so less than the United States, the number 1 country in the world? So again, when conservatives or many liberals as well turn around and they say, oh, how are we going to have the money to pay for something like Medicare for all? It is literally cheaper than our current system. You're just deciding how you are going to go about paying for it, right? Are you going to pay for it through a single payer health insurance program like Medicare for all, okay, and have that save hundreds of billions of dollars in the process of doing that, which we've seen from every study around the world? Or are you going to have thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans go bankrupt every year, 100 million Americans with medical debt, and have nearly $45,000 to $60,000 depending on, or 60,000 people depending on the study that you want to go with, dying every single year as a result from a lack of healthcare? Or, I mean, basically those are the two options, right? I mean, that you have either a government insurance program, or you have people paying out of pocket and getting ripped off and getting bankrupted and maybe even potentially dying because they're putting off care. I mean, those are really the two only options that are on the table. And of course, we are going with the option that we are going to bankrupt people and allow them to die because they don't have enough money in their wallet. I mean, it's really as simple as that. So there isn't even an economic argument that you could make here to say, oh, we can't afford Medicare for all. We can't afford our current healthcare system. Okay, that's the reality of this. They continue down here saying that why is the United States spending more on healthcare? Okay, and so basically they get into the complexities here with all of these different health insurance plans that we have. I mean, dozens and dozens of different health insurance plans, the administration costs that go in to managing those plans from a lot of these for-profit organizations, the fact that we barely have the ability for Medicare to negotiate drug prices as every single other developed country around the world does with these big pharma companies. We basically just allow them to completely rip us off for whatever price point they want to set, and that's the basic reality of why we are spending more on healthcare than any other country around the world. And again, you can see it here in the data, spends more on administrative costs but less on long-term care than other wealthy countries. Okay, so that's the reality of this, and again, the end result of that is that we're paying more than anybody around the world, but of course we get lesser health outcomes, okay, as a result of that. Again, you look at a country like Cuba that has been under an embargo, that has been under sanctions for decades, for the entirety of its modern existence, and they still have a higher life expectancy than their neighbor, the wealthiest country on the face of the planet. So listen, my takeaway from this entire thing is basically that I don't think anybody should be directly focusing their rage or anger at somebody like Mr. Beast, who kind of like doesn't, I think, understand the full scope of some of the systemic problems that we have in this country. But that's sort of our job, is to egg him on and try to direct him in the right direction on that issue, because if he does start adding some of those systemic critiques to his video, that could influence literally tens of millions of people across the United States. So I don't think your anger should be best utilized against somebody like Mr. Beast. I think it should be directed at the healthcare system that allows for somebody like Mr. Beast, some random YouTuber with millions and millions of subscribers, to have to step into the place of, you know, the government essentially in providing care that could just be a basic improvement to thousands and thousands of people's lives around the country.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying